I want to help you master a true quarter-inch seam for accurate piecing on the Singer Quantum Stylist 9960. In with this machine was included a quarter-inch foot, and it is clear, so that makes it really easy to see where you're going. But you will want to be guiding the clear edge of the right side of the foot evenly with the edge of the fabric. But it's more than just that. First off, you do need to accurately cut your fabric pieces. Next, there are things like thread and needles that can make a difference. Plus, I'm going to show you how you can set the seam guide that comes with this machine as a nice wall to follow. So first off, I mentioned needles and thread. Why would that make such a difference? So there's two needles I always recommend to my students. One is a quilting needle size 7511. This is a thinner needle and it's sharper, and it's also a little smaller. So with a smaller needle, you need some type of thinner thread. One of my personal favorites is the Aurifil brand of thread, the 50 weight, so with the orange base. This is a nice thin thread, and the reason a thin thread is important is because after you sew this seam, you got to remember you're going to be pressing it open. A thinner thread is going to press open and flat. If you have a standard thickness of thread, it's going to kind of leave a little bit of a ridge, and actually might make your size of blocks shrink down the more seams that you sew to make that size. I remember when I started quilting, my blocks were always like 12 1/4, not 12 1/2, and I was losing my seam allowance. Part of it was because I didn't know any different and we were using thicker thread. The other needle that I'd recommend along this line is a Microtech size 70 needle. Again, you have to use a thinner thread in these needles, so if you're switching needles, you need to switch to a thinner thread. Next, as you start to stitch, let's go ahead and actually attach the quarter-inch foot. The lines on this foot would assist you if you needed to do an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, first off, before I do anything, I noticed I am on a decorative stitch, and I'm going to go back to a straight stitch so the needle goes down into the center of the foot. I would have broken my needle, and hopefully not my foot, if I had stitched in to the side. So make sure you're always on a straight stitch when you put this on. So the next thing is you guiding this fabric so that foot and the edge is perfectly lined up. Now I mentioned that you could utilize the guide that came with this machine. You could actually set that guide right up against the foot and the fabric and create this little wall. And that would be like the ultimate training wheels for keeping your fabric guided nice and even. Look how perfect that would be. Let's just go ahead. I'm on a straight stitch center needle position. Yes, I didn't switch thread or needles, but that way you can see what I'm working with. Look, I can just kind of keep that fabric hugged up against that little wall, and I'm going to get a perfect quarter-inch seam. So after you've stitched, go ahead and press and then measure. Are you getting the size your pattern has asked for? But trust me, with a little bit of practice, the right needles and the right thread, I think you'll find that your quarter-inch seams will become more accurate.